So we got the new turbo in. We're finally on full 85, guys, like I mentioned last time. You're gonna see a few clips a little bit later in this video going up against a few other cars. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of the main differences I noticed with this new turbo setup. So getting right into it, obviously is that with this new turbo you've got like the bigger compressor wheels and turbine wheels, but the housing of the turbo is true to OEM size. Basically once this thing spools up, man, it is so much different over a stock turbo. If you are completely stock IS20 turbo and you go over to like an EQT Vortex or any type of hybrid turbo, it is a major difference in the power output. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, to put into perspective, guys, like I mentioned before, with the stock OEM IS20 turbo, whatever you want to call it, it's very peaky, like I mentioned before. Once it hits pretty hard, but then it dies off very, very soon. It does not hold that power all the way like a Vortex or like a hybrid turbo would. The main difference here is that with this new turbo, once I hit boost, it pulls and it holds it all the way to 7 grand. Now my previous setup, if you've been watching the channel before, is that with the IS38, the Golf R size turbo, it would hit a smidge later than the OEM IS20 turbo, but then carry all the way to about 6 grand, starts dying off right away. And that's on full 85. Now with this turbo here, you basically have the same similar response feeling as like the IS38, but again, once it hits all the way, it holds that PSI all the way to 7 grand. With the IS38, yes, you can rev it to about like 6 grand, maybe 6.5 if you have extra fueling like MPI and whatnot, but right after that, it's gonna die very, very quickly. For most cars after 6,000, it starts to die off, and it makes all the difference. And now I know what some of you guys are thinking. You're thinking, why did you get the Vortex Standard, aka the IS20 hybrid turbo versus like the Vortex XL, which would be like the IS38 hybrid? So there's a few reasons why. The main reason is I do favor earlier spool time versus, later. With the Vortex Turbo XL version, the IS38 hybrid version, that thing is spooling up usually between like 35, as early as 35, but also almost closer to 4 grand RPM. Yes, it does breathe a lot better up top. However, for daily driving and city driving and stuff like that, it won't hit as soon as, like your IS20 counterpart. So spool time was one reason why. Another reason why is that they also didn't have that turbo in stock. It was actually on back order. So sucks for that, but it wasn't really my first choice anyways. I did want to choose the smaller size turbo. Again, just for the earlier spool, I do favor that, and I didn't want it to feel so much more laggy compared to my previous setup. I wanted to basically take advantage and get a little bit more of a power bump than what I had before. Now, is that something I regret? Absolutely not. I don't regret not getting the Vortex XL or something like a TPC 38. While those turbos are really nice, again, I did want to get the earlier spool time. So this thing still is a pretty noticeable power bump over the previous IS38 that I had. It pulls great, honestly. I can't really complain. There's a roll in that video coming out next, so stay tuned for that. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of fun, but here's a few clips you can take a look at right now. All right, guys, here we go. We don't have much time. We're running late, but this is it. 2019 GTI. We got the hybrid turbo on here. We're gonna go to the roll nights out in Mexico, and we're gonna basically see how this car stacks up against a few other builds, random cars. So let's go ahead and head out there. to be honest, I feel like it pulls pretty good. It is definitely at this point now maxing out the capacity of those performance pack brakes. The brakes, I mean, you know, I feel like on IS20, you know, your stock turbo, it was more than enough. Once I moved over and bumped up to like an IS38, I felt like the brakes were adequate and they're still great. They're still getting the job done, but I felt like any more power than that, you know, they would get kind of iffy. I'd still stand by that statement, you know, getting this power bump and getting a lot much more top end power. Yes, I mean, the brakes, they still perform pretty well, but, you know, at this time, I would suggest anyone to, you know, look into getting, you know, something a little bit larger than your performance pack with all these like continuous back and forth and non-stop back-to-back pulls. If you're out there doing a lot of spirited driving, it is definitely something to consider. Or at least, you know, get some brake upgrades. You can do like the stainless steel lines, just whatever you can to keep it cool. Maybe also you know, swap rotors to something slotted and help keep your brakes cool. I think if you do that, then, you know, you don't need to spend all the extra money on like a big brake kit and whatnot. You can get away with that. And also upgrade your pads too, right? There's that. Let me see what else. There's a B. Right there. Look at that. Anyways. Yeah, guys, so how does it feel compared to IS38? Practically the same. I want to say on 91, it did feel maybe a smidge slower in spool time. On 91, on 85, they feel relatively similar. I feel like this turbo spools up pretty good. You can actually take a look at a graph here that I'll post right now, showing what it's like. So on this graph, as you can see how it holds that. Once it hits that peak boost, it holds it all the way to redline. Definitely, you can feel that in the driver's seat. Even on my 91 tune, or 91 map, with this thing dialed in just a little bit, I felt like it was just as quick as my full E85 IS38 was just a flatter torque curve. I felt like the other turbo on E85 just had a tad bit more torque, again, because of the E85. But this thing on 85, oh my god. It's so much fun, guys. Again, it's not as peaky. It doesn't hit as strong as your traditional OEM IS20, and I've said that in other videos before. Yeah, guys, I mean, it pulls pretty damn good. I mean, I can't complain. Just watch the video that's coming up next. You'll see how it does against other cars. Again, it's still getting dialed in, but it's, you know, we got a good chunk of it done now. And yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way how the car is. Another thing is that if you don't already know, I did swap tuners. OEM turbo, I was on sneekytuned. I swapped turbos and I went to 5150. There's a Cobra that just passed by. But yeah, IS38, I jumped to 5150, got it dyno tuned. That was a lot of fun. No issues there. I can't not complain. But now I switched tuners again, and now we are rocking the Equilibrium tuning, E-tuned by them. I thought about getting a dyno tune. They're out in Northern California, but I don't really have the time to go out there. So yeah, we're doing the street tune now, and you know what? It's doing just fine. Again, we've got a couple of revisions in. You'll watch that video that's coming up, and you'll see how it is. This thing is a lot of fun, guys. This car is pretty crazy. I've always thought that the GTIs are one of those cars you really get bang for buck type of car. Still lives up to this statement today. I will say though, jumping over to a hybrid turbo and running full 85, things start to get expensive really, really fast. And let me go ahead and explain a little bit more in depth about what I mean. Let's go ahead and pop the hood here. Popping the hood, kind of showing you what is going on here. So obviously you've got your open air intake. I kind of prefer this MST intake open now. I tried it closed for a little bit. I mean, it's nice, right? But you don't get that swishy sound as much. Having it like this, so much more fun. But yeah, you know, you got like your intake, blah, blah, blah. You got the turbo back there. Now, this is where the hybrid turbos setup starts getting expensive. You're gonna pop this off. And you've got your blue fuel rail there. If you don't already know, if you're new to the GTIs, this is your MPI multi-port injection kit. So port injection, if you want to run full 85, I highly recommend, like 1000%, you got to get the MPI kit. Because without this, I mean, you know, you're not going to be able to fully take advantage of a hybrid turbo setup. Even though this is a IS20 housing size turbo, you still need, you know, the MPI. You've got a lot more air compressing. You're gonna need a lot more fuel to go with that to match, to be able to output more power and fully take advantage of this stuff. So yeah, MPI kits, that's pretty expensive. Your fueling mods, your supporting mods. Also, we've got like the boost controller in the back seat over there. That can get pricey as well. So 2 supporting mods there. Can also get pricey with if you swap manifolds, buy like an additional Euro manifold, you know, all these little things start adding up. And on top of that, your traditional maintenance and stuff like that. The most expensive part of this upgrade is obviously the turbocharger itself. You can see back there. Second most expensive is going to be these fuel rails. But once you got this stuff and you got everything bolted down, man, it is a recipe for a great build. Again, it still looks like OEM did. You know, with this on here, and you guys know, you know, these cars, they don't really need an aftermarket intake to perform well. So you can really run your stock intake, the stock airbox. It'll still perform very good. It'll be very quiet, but it'll perform good. And you can still push a lot out of this thing and look super sleeper. Like you can see it with this. I know it's kind of crooked, but I mean, it just looks like nothing's been done. You got your IS-20 sized turbo back there. So it looks like nothing's done to this car. I mean, it's crazy how stealthy these GTIs can really be. Just something to keep in mind. I honestly pretty happy about this. And yeah, I mean, I can't complain. If you have any questions, definitely let me know and drop it down below. And hope to see you on the next one. Peace.